So I'm sure being in finance, you've seen a lot. Do you think money changes people or reveals people?
Great question. I think about this one kind of through different times in my life, and the experience is there's this great balance. Also, I want to achieve that in the future. I think future episodes will elaborate on the podcast as well, of the balance being relatable and describing an authentic experience, and hopefully it doesn't come across as alienating. I think money definitely plays a factor in how you think about everything in life, especially living in such a world. People call it materialistic world. I just call it resource dependent. Not every country has the same amount of oil that needs to run their energy supply needed on Earth. So then your resource allocation becomes different. That's an analogy to per household and per person. So I think money reveals more your character, who you are. So what you do after you have a good amount of money, generally. And then there's a more scientific way to approach this too. So Morgan Housel, shout out to him, great author, wrote The Psychology of Money, and I think he had a new book coming out too. That's also really good. Just talking about how I think generally the ballpark is, if you are around, let's say, going from having nothing to have maybe $100,000 saved in an investment account or something like that, then going around maybe $1 or $2 million. That's like we're sitting in the great state of California. That but with caveats, with the problems that's being a great state is that housing prices high, stuff like that. So then you go to $1 or $2 million, but that if it's not liquid net worth, it can be your home, right? It could be your house, but you can't really spend that. Then you go up there, 5, 10, then sort of this definition of like people generally think in terms of a billionaire or nothing kind of a thing, but there's a lot of tiers in the middle. There's like people who is worth a couple $1 million in retirement accounts. There's people who are having more of an asset base or having a business that's worth $20 million, maybe generate $1 million cash flow and stuff like that. So I can go on, but I think generally it reveals people in the sense where what you do with it buys the freedom. I like this quote that I read very early on in my 20s was, money doesn't buy you happiness, but it gives you the option to find out what does. And I personally think out of the three things, I think we talked about a little bit about this before, between money, power, and fame, the three things I think about people sort of having this strong desire to attain. I think money is the least evil one of the three. Power generally is more zero-sum game. You dominate over other people, that's why you have power. You can decide in a dictatorship situation or authoritarian country, you can literally decide who dies and who goes to war. That's a form of power. And then in hierarchical situation, hierarchical family, you can tell, in this, I'm sure you relate from certain cultures, Eastern Asian families, or whatever the case may be, people can decide who their kids marry, who can decide what they do for their occupation. That's power. So generally, it's more dictatorial. As a very freedom, I have this sort of more libertarian freedom loving soul that I don't like power as much. And I think those who attain it shall be very careful with it. And absolute power corrupts absolutely. So, and fame is something, another beast that generally it looks appealing for the ones who don't have it. But the ones who are in it actually kind of want to get out because privacy and all other things. So going back to money, I think it reveals your character, who you are, because just having resources to allocate, you can decide to buy your mom a car and take care of her retirement with their mortgages, things like that. Or you could, sort of spend it, waste it in a way, or substance abuse or things like that you can easily go bankrupt quickly too.
Yeah.
So money is a double-edged sword, just like power and fame. But I think if one learned the proper financial literacy, which we'll dive into with more technical details on the podcast, hopefully, I think this can be, it can be great in the sense where you can allocate resources. You can, another quote I like is, somebody sitting under the shade today is because someone else planted a tree 20 years ago.
Yeah.
In my case, my father worked pretty hard. He planted some of that, not directly, but we were well off growing up, but definitely not super wealthy or anything like that. We flew economy class and things like that. When he was on business trips with his company, he flies business just by himself. He brings me and my mom and myself. We flew econ, things like that. But the goal was to sort of having the platform access education, those type of things for your children, and I think can be helpful to them or for the ones you love. And most importantly, to create opportunities, right? This is the underrated part. Like, you create jobs when you start a business, when you are good at capital allocation to do things the right way. You sort of funnel this channel to different to where the resources needed. So I look at money kind of like people say liquidity, right? It's kind of like water. It flows to where if you are
Yeah,
good,
it's like water and energy.
exactly.
Yeah.
If it's like, if you are good at capital allocation in what we do, as investors, you can direct it to the proper resources that's needed. And I will refer to another video if I have time to about Warren Buffett talking about this, about how he talked about the casino, the cathedral inside the casino, this concept of modern markets and money, casino inside the cathedral. I think he referred to this, and it's quite interesting. But also, we could pull up a quote if that's possible. Warren Buffett on kindness from his Thanksgiving letter. So he wrote a letter very recently.
We have it.
Yeah, we have it on the wall.
Here.
Yeah, we have it on the wall. But it's good. We can pull it up. He said, the Berkshire, my life would be happier if I would yours 6-8 different houses or a bunch of things. It doesn't correlate. So, and I think having loads of money doesn't add to happiness. That's also something I'm happy to dive into in the future episodes of how each phase sort of changes your psychology. And then I think I still have more ways to go. But generally, that's not how, with the author Morgan Housel talk about in the Psychology of Money, the book, he talked about the amount that you think you'll be happy, it's always double the amount you have now. So people never stopped. So that's where the dichotomy is. So I think there's got to be this recognition of, okay, what do I need it for? How do I plan to use it? And then what type of things I'm truly passionate about and need. That I don't think everybody's goal or dream at like 3 years old or at 10 growing up is to have a 600-foot yacht or something like. I don't think that just generally or having a plane. I don't think that generally was the case. But because of this monkeying fact we have in society that we generally come from somewhere. Let's just say either God created us or some cases. But the thing is, we compete with our neighbors, with our
keeping up with the Joneses.
Exactly, in ways that probably plays more into how we view money, and I think that feeds on the engine of capitalism itself, of course, and that otherwise we wouldn't have the economy that we have today.
Yeah.
But as an individual, just be cautious of that, and then probably be a little bit happier too, I think.
Yeah.
So.